Hi, everybody. Nick Livingston. On this week's Honeit Podcast, we're thrilled to have Carrie Ariniello from Reese's Fine Food. I was just chatting with Carrie. She's got a really exciting background, has seen all sides of the staffing, TA side of things, but also has a really great business background, which I think is really unique and interesting. Carrie, welcome to the Honeit Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Maybe we could go back to the beginning. I always just like to hear how people get into recruiting and staffing. It's kind of a unique field. They don't really teach you about in school or whatnot. But I saw you were a branch manager, but you mentioned even working before that at a startup. I guess I'd love to hear a little bit more about that story, and then we can kind of get into the internal TA side of things.
Sure. And I'll try and keep it concise because it's quite the history. But I started out working for a startup staffing firm. It was nurse staffing, and he was a nurse turned entrepreneur, and he saw that there was a massive shortage in the market, and we just took off. It was hard work. I actually ended up going because it was very flexible. It allowed me the opportunity to work from home even back then. And the at home didn't last long, that I can tell you, because we started growing so quickly. And it ended up that I was in the office full time helping to grow the organization. We ended up being the largest nurse staffing agency across the West Coast. And eventually ended up getting purchased by Medical Staffing Network, which then now today is cross-country nursing. So definitely had a good run with them. It was a great experience. It was an entrepreneurial experience, and it was really where I got my feet wet in talent acquisition and in the staffing industry.
Well, interesting, because I was trying to connect the dots of how you go to be a branch manager at Volt, and I thought, okay, well, now that makes sense if you had the operational experience and the scaling at the nursing healthcare staffing firm, then that makes total sense. I guess a lot of times we're talking about the business of recruiting, right? And that might differ from, say, internal corporate talent acquisition, who
Yes.
sits with HR and, does different things to protect the business and make sure,
Mhm.
employees are safe and that liability is taken care of, and all these things that HR can do to protect the organization, which is great. On the external side of recruiting, though, many folks know it's revenue generating. It's a money business.
Yep.
More placements equals. So with that comes a lot of interesting personalities, tension, hustle, grit, all of these
Mhm.
things. I guess maybe walk us through that journey at Volt and kind of building a
Yep.
branch or managing a branch where you're not just filling jobs, you're thinking about all sides of that business, the operations, the sales, et cetera, and how to get everybody working together on.
Yeah. At Volt, I was an area manager, so I had the state of Idaho and the state of Oregon. So I did have multiple branches and oversaw really some very large enterprise clients at that time. Some at that point in time, mainly IT, tech, and engineering was the area that I was focused on and leading. We were doing a lot of permanent placement at the time, as well as contingent labor, short-term contracts. We were heavy with some of the semiconductor companies here that we were servicing and providing talent to, as well as like the freight liners. We were working with them for providing engineers to them. So it was a pivot for me because I was going out of healthcare. I was going into IT tech and engineering, which felt like a huge learning curve for me. But really, it was probably one of the best things I could have done. And it forced me to not just think about the healthcare environment, which tends to be a little bit in the box sometimes. And in the IT tech and engineering space at Volt, I felt like we really were partnering with clients, and we were really focused not so much on just like filling the positions, but also being a business partner and understanding the business aspects of how we could meet their needs and provide more of a strategic level uh, service to them in general. So
Gotcha.
it really
Not just filling the jobs or butts in seats, as they say, but, if you've got a long-term you want a long-term relationship with the client and not just 1 rec, 2 recs, 3 recs,
exactly,
hundreds of recs or, a 10-year relationship. It's gonna have to be built around trust and making good if things don't work out, I would imagine, and finding
absolutely.
yeah,
The
compromise.
more I could understand their business or my team could understand their business, the more business we were going to receive because we were going to be able to make better placements.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
From there, I saw interesting kind of trajectory. You took another curve in your career, and looks like you opened up some hospitals and some clinics, and having that experience, filling jobs and hiring
Mhm.
nurses. It looks like you then went in house and were also managing clinics. Is that right? And
Yes,
operations.
I know it's
Okay.
kind of crazy. Um, but in my history, I do have a dental background, a healthcare operations background, and so at the time that I made the switch into corporate, so I ended up making a move at Kaiser, and it was right around kind of the downturn of the market. Might age myself a little bit here, but 2008, 2009 is when we were starting to see some changes in the market. And so I decided at that point to kind of pivot and went into Kaiser as their dental operations manager for all of Southwest Washington. And so I had multiple clinics. I had the largest region in the Northwest as far as the dental offices management
Wow.
is concerned. And really, it was being that I had my talent acquisition background and then going into operations, I had to understand the day to day needs in the operations. I mean, we were set to different KPIs, obviously, patient care, patient metrics, health metrics. A lot of the things that all of our operations that we support as HR leaders and as talent acquisition leaders that we support our operations to meet those goals. I I recognized at that time the important partnership between TA, HR, as well as operations because the people are everything. And so it really was a unique opportunity for me to really see and understand the power of what we bring as TA leaders and as a TA specialist, um, that we can really make an impact to operations. And I know that firsthand, being that I led operations, not just once, but I also done it twice. And so it is really, if anyone has the opportunity to have that experience, I highly recommend it because it'll only make you better at being a TA leader or a TA specialist.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I mean, you're pulling from your experience as that area director, building, scaling the startup. Now you're in the field working with dental clinics and looking at how do those processes, work smooth. And you're right, it's a lot about the people and the staff and getting them to work together. And then I thought it was great. It looks like at Kaiser, they kind of pulled you back in, right? And said, now that
Mhm.
you know our business, now that you've seen the inside operations, we want you to connect talent acquisition and workforce planning and internal development and HR analytic, right? And so now you're starting to connect all of these sometimes silos, some forward thinking organizations do have these well connected, but looks like Kaiser was ahead of the game with some of that.
Well, I think definitely they recognized it for
Okay.
sure. And I came with the background too. So it wasn't like they were like, oh, operations, we're going to move you to recruiting or talent acquisition. It was really that I understood it and I knew it and I came from the agency space, which naturally it led very quickly because I came from agency. So I almost had I had a bit of that horsepower behind me.
Slow down. Yeah, come on now. Yeah.
I did going into my first corporate role in TA, and I had to learn to slow down. To be honest with you, it was something I had to learn to do. Um, But I came in and not only taking on the responsibility of the entire Northwest region for Kaiser Permanente, which was 10,000 plus employees at the time, but we were opening a hospital. So who has the opportunity to lead the initiative to open hospital? It's like a once in a lifetime
Mm,
opportunity. And at least in my career, it felt that way. I was like, I'll never have this opportunity again in my lifetime. And so it was a really, really, it was an honor to be able to do that and be asked to do that, and lead the team to do it. And I'm glad to say that it was very successful. It was very complex. We had 11 unions at Kaiser at the time. And so you were navigating the union relationships as well as all of the internal movement. So we had to post all the positions internally first under all of the different 11 contracts. And so we had to navigate that first before we could even post the positions external. So,
wow. So, I mean, that's internal mobility at its
mhm,
maximum, right? Like intensity when it's all happening at
yeah,
the same time too. It's not even a smooth
yeah.
trend. It's like
Well, we had to
first
negotiate
shot.
all of that with the
Wow.
unions. So they negotiated all that internal mobility before we could even look at external talent. So it sounds easier, but I can tell you it was very hard and it was very complex. Um, because we literally were working in a war room and we had a war room, we had a trailer, we had headphones on, and they were making with the union partner and with a TA individual partnered on the phone doing internal offers to candidates side by side.
Wow. Just high speed, just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then we went out external. So we had 260-ish positions internally that we filled. So keep in mind, we're filling 260 positions internally, which opens up 260 positions within the clinics, or other hospital system. As so, my other team is working on those positions while we're also then getting ready to recruit for 700 plus external positions.
So the backfilling as well. I mean, but,
Hmm.
with maybe not giving those, employees an option or a choice, would probably hurt
Hmm.
retention and things like that. So in a way, you're keeping
Yes.
keeping the folks longer to, within the organization rather than looking elsewhere, even if they're changing offices or was there relocations and some of that involved, or was it
Oh, yes.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah, so under the
Definitely, relocation packages or made available for individuals as well. So,
wow,
mhm,
yeah. So a
absolutely.
big cost overall. Um
Mhm.
I wanna fast forward a little bit. I mean, you had some other
Mhm.
great experience working, looks like in healthcare and dental and some, community or civic work, the outdoor store as well, but I wanted to fast forward to research. I mean, I think this has been an interesting kind of a new industry for you, right? The food business and the
Yeah.
production of food and it's a large operation. Maybe you could talk a little bit about Research Fine Foods and how
Mhm.
your team is structured there. I think that would be interesting for the audience.
Yeah. So, Resource Fine Foods is a family owned company, 75 years this last year in 2025. We have plants all across the country: North Carolina, Kansas, Tennessee, Washington, California. We're all across the country. We have distribution centers across the country. We also have our own trucking division. We're about 5,000 employees across the organization. Um, and it's a wonderful, unique environment. We are family owned, and I have to say it is really a unique experience to come into an organization that has continued to grow year over year, and we're continuing to grow as an organization, but still really is foundationally solid as it relates to their people. And that's a really, really unique experience that I've had here for sure.
I was gonna say it seems like it's more rare, rare and rarer to have, and let alone independent companies just that aren't beholden to investors or public markets and things like that. But on this side, even just still family owned, where they probably set the tone of the culture from the top, but they probably are still very involved in some of the operational decisions, and um, so that maybe there's challenges with that too. But I've always been impressed with the brand, the website, the storytelling.
Mhm.
Like you do have a great story there, and I would imagine that helps with attracting talent that
Oh, of
that
course,
resonate with the
of
core
course.
values and resonate with the messaging that they see. I mean, that want to be a part of something and feel, respected and part of a family in a way, even though your work is not your family. I recognize that, but being part of something that has been around for a long, long time and has a good history, I think that would be fun to
Mhm.
good employment branding and recruitment marketing, uh,
It's super
content there.
fun to be able to represent Resource Fine Foods, and we're very well known, yeah, especially in the Northwest market. People are very familiar with the brand, the family. The family is very generous with all of the work that they do within the community. So it really is a special place to be. Hmm.
Well, I wanna counter that all because I also wanna shout out that you're a very innovative TA leader as well, right? And the fact that, your team has been using Honeit for some time, I just think
Yes.
speaks volumes that you're really pushing the needles on what talent acquisition and recruiters can deliver to hiring teams, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of an exciting time. There's a lot going on in our space, but I wanted to just shout out you're coming from tradition and legacy and a 75-year business, yet, your team and your department is on the forefront of empowering recruiters, elevating the function. How do we
Hmm.
streamline the interview experience? How do we help hiring teams make better decisions faster? I mean, maybe you could unpack a little bit about how your team is structured, or how do you combine this,
Yeah.
you know, legacy and kind of family first company with that of kind of
Hmm.
innovation within a team.
I think for us, it's been a very thoughtful approach um, because people are the core of what we do and how we do it. You think of 80% of our workforce is frontline. But with that being said, it is a very, very people focused organization. So keeping the people piece of our recruitment process intact is incredibly important. So using Honeit allows us to do that. We can use a tool that helps us become more efficient, uses AI technology in the background to help summarize everything, record everything, provide it in just these perfect little snippets for our hiring managers to review and evaluate firsthand from the candidate. I have to say, it really has been an amazing tool for us. It really has. I pulled some metrics because it's something that I
Ooh,
shared recently with our senior leaders, and I have the opportunity twice a year to go in front of our C level leadership and VP level leadership to talk about the things we're doing. And Honeit was one of them. And so I was able to share that um, since we've started using it in July, we had saved 346 hours of recruiter time, which is roughly about 10 hours of recruiter time a week. And so it's really been an effective tool for us. So thank you for
wow.
what
Thank
you
you.
provided.
Thanks for measuring it. No, that's great.
Yeah.
We're always trying to think about, what type of value does maybe a
Yes.
solution or so when you're just trying to solve a problem, how do you describe the value, whether it's time saving to the recruiters, whether it's time saving to the hiring managers, whether it's not paying for as many tools and maybe consolidating your stack. There's just, so that's fantastic that you put those numbers
Mhm.
together. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
and it definitely has led to faster hiring decisions too. So saving our managers time. So I haven't even calculated that for
oh,
sure.
there you go. We got a little project. We can do a little side project
That's
on some of
right.
that. Let's do it. Well, no, thank you for the shout out. But no, that's really great because I think a lot of folks in our industry are trying to figure out how do if recruiting budgets are cut or if headcounts are getting
Mhm.
cut, it's like how do we do more with less as a recruiting team? How do we, or if we're going to keep our recruiting headcount, how do we maybe elevate our output and maybe take on more more responsibility of the hiring process, right? I think sometimes recruiting is a bit of a handoff, right? We get the candidates to apply, we might do a first pass, and then, there's kind of a handoff where then now hiring managers or hiring teams are really responsible for a lot of the
Mhm.
downstream interviewing or some of that process, even if we might help schedule. But I think what we're excited about is how can we as talent partners level up those screening conversations, right? What if we could conduct really skills-based, comprehensive interviews on the very first call, right?
Yeah.
With questions tied to the various competencies or skills that we're trying to evaluate. And then, not necessarily using AI to score or anything like that, but how do we empower our
Mhm.
hiring teams who know what a great answer is or who've done a lot of hiring, but just don't necessarily need to spend 45 minutes on the phone with each candidate as a
Mhm.
second step of the process to be able to participate in the interviewing, evaluation side of things. So I think
Mhm.
that, we see that as a real opportunity for TA, under leaders like you to kind of, like you said, we're not removing recruiters. We're not letting recruiters go. We're actually keeping the same number of recruiters employed, but we're also
Yep.
leveling up what we deliver to our internal clients. And I think
Mhm.
that's a great narrative that's often overlooked because of, maybe just the speed or time saving capabilities of AI, let's say.
Right. Well, and the time that it saves for my TA team gives them more time to spend with their hiring managers and really understanding their specific business needs. And it gives us the time to do the relationship building that so often we don't have the time to do.
Yeah. It's like the relationships, those conversations or intake calls or meetings with hiring teams to really
Mhm.
understand the role fully, make sure everybody's aligned, and then, those conversations with candidates as well. Where do you see, I guess we could looking ahead, like where do you see things going from here? I mean, your team is already kind of blending human first recruiting with kind of AI assisted capabilities. Where how far do you see it going? Kind of what other maybe areas are you looking at innovation or improvement, um, in other
We
parts?
are we're evaluating lots of things. I feel like this last year has really just been a lot of exploration. I think a lot of listening and learning, um, really understanding what the tools can bring and what they can help us do as far as efficiencies, but really improving efficiency cannot take the human component out of it. So that is really been very, very much on the forefront for me. I'm very clear about what I know we cannot eliminate in our process. So, um, finding a tool that can help with the maybe the very front end of the recruitment process, where there's an AI chatbot. There's so many options right now. I have demoed so many options, but at this point, it's about finding the right one that allows us the amount of flexibility that we know that we need, so that if we want to insert the human components, it allows us to insert those components. And so we're being thoughtful. We're not rushing at all to try and get to the finish line. We're really making sure we're making thoughtful decisions.
Yeah, because at the top of the funnel, right, candidates may or may not wanna talk to a human. We're seeing some of these, like,
Mhm.
different
Yep.
headlines, right, around and different
Mhm.
studies even of, like, do people wanna talk to people in the hiring process? Many are, like, adamant that they do. Some say candidates don't. Maybe they've been burnt or had bad experiences in the past. I don't know. But I think you're right, that balance, maybe it's giving the candidates options. Maybe it's, hey, if you want to do a quick pre-screener, here's a link to do a quick pre-screener. We might ask the same three or four questions we're going to ask on an interview, right? Or similar questions. Or here's a link to talk to a human. I think maybe
Mhm.
there's an option to segue that where it gives candidates the chance. You can then measure it to see, you know, because you don't want the candidates to drop off or go across
Right.
the street, right? Because maybe
Exactly.
the friction or the whatnot, but at the same time, we're coming from a world where, job applications have been a pretty horrendous process for many years, right? In terms of, here's my resume, and now I'm typing out all of the same information, or we've gone to the one-click apply, which is complicates things for other reasons, right? And then we
Right.
have it's too easy to apply. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're still as an industry kind of always looking for that balance where,
Mhm.
there's recruiting and hiring is a challenging thing. It's not easy. There's a lot of people involved, and when there's a lot of people involved in things, it becomes
Mhm.
more challenging.
Yeah.
But, I think technology this might be a new opportunity for
Mhm.
us to kind of think about how does AI assist some of this stuff that was
Mhm.
tedious and elevate the stuff that is human and important. So,
Mhm. Candidate experience
yeah.
will always be on the forefront, and will continue to be. And so I think that that's definitely something that um, we will continue to focus on and make sure that that's a genuine part of whatever decisions we make, moving through that experience and through this whole evolution of what we're experiencing as TA leaders. Definitely.
Kudos, Carrie. You've been a great leader and a great partner of Honeit, and so I look forward to continuing working together and solving some of these other challenges together, and thinking about how we can help you measure it all. I guess one parting comment from
Mhm.
from you. I mean, I think you've got this wonderful background of recruiting TA plus operations. And I guess, you know, what advice would you give to someone, in your shoes, maybe a little early in their career, trying to navigate how do I kind of build a great foundation to then be able to grow in whatever career I decide on? Any thoughts or
Mhm.
suggestions? Um,
Never shy away from those opportunities that might steer you in a different direction. I think back at the experience that I've had being an operations leader, and it truly is my superpower. Um, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of being able to say to a hiring manager, I know exactly what you're talking about. I understand that there's a lot of pressure to meet those deliverables in operations. And how are we going to help you meet those metrics? And I can say it with empathy, I can say it with understanding, and I can maybe even provide some insight on how they can be even more successful as an operations leader and helping them through their hiring process. So I would say, don't be shy to turn a corner because you never know what it will bring you and what you can learn from it, and it definitely will make you better as a TA practitioner or even a TA leader.
Fantastic. On that note, Carrie, thank you so much for joining the Honeit podcast. Where can folks get a hold of you if they're interested in research or if they want to connect?
Well, LinkedIn, of course. I'm out
Okay,
there.
there we go. We'll make sure to post your link in the notes in the podcast, so people can get a hold of you. But yeah, I love that you're from the Pacific Northwest and you're building something really special there. And it's been a pleasure to work with you. And just hearing you summarize talking about operations, we see that's really an important skill in any TA, right? Because to change the hiring process or to improve the recruiter or candidate experience takes change, and change is challenging to do. So, I think maybe that's where you've been so successful at implementing, say, new tools or technology or processes because it's not easy. And then the tool is the easy part. It's the change management, right?
Yeah.
Getting people
The
to
the change component is a whole other podcast.
there you go. Next time, come back and we'll talk about that one. Well, thank you,
Absolutely.
Carrie. Really
You
appreciate it. Let's
bet.
do it again.
Thanks, Nick.